Welcome back to my channel. My video thumbnail is based on one I saw a while back, and it got me to thinking it would make a good topic. Not particularly because of the religious aspect, that's just a jumping off point, but also some general things to consider when examining the pros and cons of government welfare. A lot of people who are in favor of government welfare like to use the Bible against those Christians who oppose welfare. But is the biblical teaching about helping those in need a legitimate argument for government welfare? It is certainly true that Jesus and the Bible in general talk about helping the poor. It just doesn't hold up for supporting government welfare, and the thumbnail, in an amusing way, shows why. As we see, we have Jesus telling people to help those in need. His audience then asks if they can just give the money to the Romans and let them provide the help. In other words, let the government tax the people, and then the government spends that money to help the poor however the government chooses to do so. But Jesus was referring to individuals helping the poor, not government, which is why we have the response that Jesus will explain it again and ask them where they got confused. You can't just ignore the context of what Jesus taught. Doesn't mean you can't find other arguments to use, but this one just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. I get no credit from God for the government taking my money and helping the poor. That would be like saying the rich got credit for helping the poor when Robin Hood stole from the rich and gave to the poor. I only get credit for my individual, voluntary charity. And no politicians are going to get credit from God for passing higher taxes in the name of helping others, though they might have some explaining to do for how they managed to make huge amounts of money while in office. Nor do citizens get credit for electing politicians who vote for these things. When individuals help those in need, they also decide who and how to help. And since it is with their own money, they will tend to be more careful about who they help and how they do it. All too often, charity just makes people dependent. It can even cause more harm than good. For example, if we help a poor nation after a disaster, all the donated food means the local farmers can't sell, and thus go out of business, which means less food grown locally for many years. Much better if we prioritize buying all the food the local farmers could provide, then give that food away to the needy first. That way you aren't destroying the long-term ability of the country to feed its own citizens. On a smaller scale, you may give to someone living on the street, but some of them will gladly take the money and just keep expecting more rather than making any effort to get a job. Effective charity takes a lot of thought by the giver. Like some people, I have given to an animal shelter. Not because I think animals are more important than people, they aren't. But I don't have to just pick the most in need or the most important. I don't just give to a shelter because I appreciate their goal. I look to see if they have a plan to be successful. For example, I've given to the Dumaguete Animal Shelter in the Philippines after seeing a couple videos by the Filipina P. But first, I did research on them. Turned out they had a good plan to succeed independently over time, so I was glad to help out, and they never pestered me for more. The point is, individual giving makes the donor responsible to make good choices. Contrast that with how it works when government uses your money to help others. While I have no doubt a private donor may be careless with who they help, even to the point of falling for scams, it is worse with government. Bureaucrats have less reason to care if they are being wasteful or if they are given to fraudsters. After all, they aren't spending their own money. Of course they won't care as much. But it's even worse than that. The politicians may be using some of the money to benefit themselves, or have the money spent specifically to help those most likely to vote for them rather than based on need. These things are reasons why we have so much fraud where billions are stolen in just one state. And we are seeing politicians defending, or at least trying not to prosecute them, because the scammers come from their voter base. Another problem when government is involved is that once you have a welfare program, even if it is just wasting money, it's almost impossible to get rid of it. Let me give a hypothetical. Suppose you have a welfare program that spends $10 billion a year. Then an investigation discovers that $5 billion of that is going to fraud. You try to make changes to make it harder for fraudsters. What will always happen is that one party will immediately play the emotion card, claiming that any such change will cause some truly needy people to lose the help they're getting through this program. No doubt some will. It's the nature of bureaucracy. But think of the $5 billion going to criminals instead of actually helping people. Even if some people, unfortunately, lose help, there are many more people who will now get help from the money the scammers no longer get. The trouble is, it is very easy to point to some individual who they will at least claim will be hurt. You never get to see the far larger number who will benefit because they don't benefit until the changes are made. All the emotion is on the side of those who won't fix the problem. With individual charity, you decide when and who to give to. You decide when to stop. You don't get to force other people to give to those you approve of, and others don't get to tell you who to give to. And if you don't want to deal with all of that, you can simplify it by just doing some basic research about organized charities to find one known for donations actually going to those in need rather than to their own bureaucracy. When I was a kid, there were far more local organizations who existed to help in the community than I see now. Since then, as government has done so much, most people just don't see it as their own responsibility anymore. It's a let the government do it attitude, which makes a mess of things while destroying personal responsibility. Thanks for watching, and don't let the trolls stop you from speaking out.